All right, so this is the third video of the iPad Pro as a daily driver update. Now I realize it's been a while since I've checked in, and on purpose. We did a video right away of kind of initial thoughts of using it, and now we are 5 months in. Let me tell you what has happened since then. We just moved from Illinois to California and all the craziness associated with that. But that's actually given me some great opportunities to test the iPad Pro in a wide variety of circumstances, from new job to kind of new normal, and kind of reinvent my rhythm. Now, as a reminder, this whole video, for the sake of this experiment, is filmed, edited, and uploaded all on the iPad Pro. So you're not gonna see cutaways to the iPad Pro being used because I'm filming on the iPad Pro. So if you want to see what the iPad Pro looks like, there's a billion other videos to do that. That's not what we're talking about here. Our question is, can this device be used as a daily driver if you're in a similar arena like me? Productivity, for a pastor, for a speaker, for a teacher, for a leader. We're gonna focus on three major areas. One is productivity in general. Two will be the Apple Pencil and how that works with the iPad Pro. And three, some quick closing thoughts. First of all, productivity. I mean, this is the major thing that we have to worry about. Is this good enough to be able to use as a daily driver? First of all, productivity. The main thing that I switched over is from Evernote to Apple Notes, which we talked about in the last video. It's been awesome. I mean, there's some things that you cannot do in Notes that you could do in Evernote, but you know what? I really don't miss it. Now, one of the cool things about Apple Notes is I can just look at my Apple Watch or my phone or my iPad Pro in this case and just say, you know, hey Siri, make a note. And it will automatically make a note with the idea. So I can be driving and just say, hey Siri, make a note, study more about blah, 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 and it'll automatically make a note. Another thing about productivity, I know this has been hit over and over again, but 5 months in, I'm still amazed by it, is battery life is absolutely amazing. You never have to plug in. And for those of you that have laptops that are older, or especially an iMac obviously needs to stay tethered to a wall, but I never have to charge this thing during the day. It just works and works and works. The idea of having a power cord is just a foreign idea. Also, in regards to speaking, I've spoken from my iPad Pro instead of printing it out on paper several times now and have had zero problems. It seems totally fluid. It feels totally natural. And I actually have like a little leather pad folio that it goes in, and it looks like I'm walking up there with a pad of paper and speaking off of that. It's been absolutely fantastic. What's been great is, right before I speak, I can edit the content on the fly if I want to adjust some things here and there, tweak it a little bit, and then I'm ready to preach off of it right away. It's been a really cool rhythm. What I love about it is everything syncs. You know, whether it be all my passwords and usernames and credit card information and addresses, I use a thing called 1Password, or you can even save all that stuff in Safari itself natively. I'm sure you can do it in Chrome. I think you can do it in Chrome. I don't use Chrome, but obviously a lot of you guys do. Also, I journal through a program called Day One, which syncs on my Mac and my iPad Pro and my iPhone seamlessly. It's been absolutely amazing. I love how everything just syncs. Everything's in the cloud now, and the whole idea of something being on one device, whether it be photos or anything, is just kind of crazy. My email, my calendar, my contacts, everything just syncs. No matter what device I pick up, it's the same content. Now, printing. Printing can be a little bit of a hassle if you don't have an AirPrint enabled printer. Now, my printer at home, I have to use what's called Handy Print, which is I think like 15 bucks or something like that. Totally worth using because it makes my old Epson printer now an AirPrint printer through my iMac. So I just keep my iMac on, keep my Epson printer wirelessly tethered to the iMac, and then I can print to it from any iOS device. My kids from their iPod Touches, I can from my iPad Pro or my iPhone, just print whatever document or email I want to without a problem. But obviously if you have an AirPrint printer, no problem, you're not gonna see any issues there. Now, a few negatives as it relates to productivity. The first one, file structure. This is not debilitating, but it's not super helpful either. I've just gotten used to it, really. Through Dropbox and Google Drive and Apple's own iCloud Drive, it's been usable, but the problem is there's not one cohesive file system. Now, it's not a deal breaker, it's just annoying. Negative number 2, fingerprints. I know this sounds so duh as a touchscreen device, but if you use any sort of lotion anytime in your life, you have grease on your hands, and it is within a matter of hours after you clean your iPad Pro, it is back to a fingerprint-ridden device. So that means if you are under any sort of lighting at any time, which is like 99% of our lives, whether it be daylight or it be artificial lighting, you will see the fingerprints reflecting off of the screen, which if you're a neat freak like me will drive you crazy. I honestly don't know what to do about it. I don't know if there's a better oleophobic coating they can put on it to resist fingerprints more, or if I need to use less lotion or what, but that is definitely an issue. It sounds silly, but it's definitely an issue. The third problem with productivity is I can't use this in daylight very well. Whenever you go outside, now we're in California now, so it's pretty sunny most of the time, but if I go outside to a cafe, or if I'm outside at all to read or create content on the device, it is highly annoying. It's almost like you put the brightness level all the way down, except it's all the way up. I would love to work outside and have it be productive. Now I have the same problem on my MacBook Air, so it's not just for the iPad Pro, but it's highly annoying for electronic devices in general. Now the second thing I wanted to focus on is the pencil. The pencil has been the saving grace of the iPad Pro. I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for the pencil, I would use my MacBook Air. The pencil is what differentiates this from the MacBook Air. I use this, any of my staff can see this, but I use this to take notes all the time. For some reason, if you and I are having a conversation and I'm on my MacBook Air in the middle of us, it feels like it's a barrier between us. But if I were to have a pen and paper, it feels like I'm not only is it not a barrier between us, but it actually makes you feel like I'm taking notes and engaging in the conversation, even more so with an iPad Pro because now it's digital. So I don't have all these pieces of paper everywhere. I can just take notes and it's all in one place. It feels very natural. Now, one of the things you do need to get is there's a loop, and I'll put it in the show notes below. Buy this loop. I bought another one, and it's too loose. The Apple Pencil falls off all the time. In closing, here's an experiment I did over the last couple weeks. I actually, in the same bag, put my MacBook Air and my iPad Pro together and picked which one I wanted to use more. Now, here's a funny thing. At the beginning, I forced myself to use the MacBook Air to reacclimate myself to that workflow. And then I decided on the fly which one to use. I kept them both charged, put them both in my bag, and I'll tell you what, 9 times out of 10, I use the iPad Pro because it's just a better all-around device, to the point now where my MacBook Air just kind of sits in the corner. Every once in a while, I'll use it if I need to work on a budget or an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, but really, I just use my iPad Pro all the time. I still think you need a full-fledged desktop OS for some things. But for most of what you do, I think this is it. I would suggest maybe maximizing the 30-day return policy of some of these stores and trying an iPad Pro, either the 9.7 inch or the 12.9 inch, and trying to see if it works in your workflow. Force yourself to use it for the first week or two solely so that you can get used to the new habit and new rhythm of your workflow. But then I think you'll find that for most of us, it works great. And you'll have to, again, learn a new normal, learn a new workflow. But for 90% of what I do, 95% of what I do, which is email and writing and obviously anything content consumption, whether it be videos or photo or articles or books, it is freaking amazing. It's really good. It's just that 5% of the stuff, you need to multitask. 5% of the stuff, you need to have a full-fledged file browser. But do you know what the killer feature for me has been for this iPad Pro? One word: focus. Focus. What I learned to do by using a Mac OS, whether it be my MacBook Air or my iMac, is to multitask, which if you've done any sort of research on productivity, we know that multitasking is a farce. Multitasking really is your ability to switch quickly and to be disengaged to your work. It allows you to not fully engage in anything. You're somewhat engaged to a lot of things. And what the iPad allows me to do, because of its inability to multitask well, it's caused me to focus on one thing. Focus on writing the email, or writing the document, or editing the project, or really diving deep into whatever I'm doing. It has given me the same level of focus as like my Kindle does for reading. Like my Kindle can't do anything else. It can just let me read a book, which has been limiting and freeing at the same time, because it's caused me to focus. My iPad Pro is the same thing. It can do a lot of things, but only really well one at a time. So it emails well one at a time. It can write documents one at a time. But you're gonna have a hard time watching a YouTube video and writing an email while also looking at a spreadsheet and using a file browser and all this stuff, because can maybe handle two things at once, but not really more than that, which really is the way that I would argue we work most effectively. So it cannot do everything a laptop can do, but I would argue that maybe that's a good thing. For me, it has been. I've gotten more work done because I can't do more at one time. You know, The Verge a while ago came out with a video comparing the iPad Pro to a laptop, and it made a really insightful comment. It said this, that on the spectrum from laptop to tablet, you have like the Surface Book and all these other things, and you have the iPad Pro. And you have the Surface Book that is a really good laptop if you're into Windows and that kind of thing, but it's a pretty mediocre tablet as far as heat and fan noise and battery life and that kind of thing. Great laptop, tablet. iPad Pro is the other end of the spectrum. It's a great tablet. And I don't think it's a great laptop, but I think it does enough of what a laptop needs to do to make it your daily driver. So after 5 months, my conclusion is this: yes, it can be your daily driver for 95% of us, but you need to decide if it's right for you. Have a great one.